Hello, world. Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. Hopefully, y'all are getting ready to watch us because we can see you.
We can. Is it working?
Actually, Martina, I'm not seeing it pop up yet, but we know there's a lot going on right now
Yes.
with Facebook and with the internet. So it's not popping up yet.
I see us. I see us. I see us. Okay.
Yay.
Hey guys.
Hi, everybody. Sorry for the delay.
Yeah, so sorry. It seems like, so we've been doing fun. Oh my gosh. So, this year we've been doing fun clubs now since like school shut down. So in the spring. And it seems like just about like every third or fourth fun club. Everything's the same always. And then all of a sudden we'll click go live and nothing will happen. So that just happened to us. But thankfully, Elicia kept me calm through it, and she had me exit my Zoom link, clear my cache, and it actually worked.
Awesome.
Yes.
Virtual teaching tip, friends. If something doesn't work, tell everyone to clear your cache. Yeah. All you need to do is Google, how do I clear my cache on Safari or Chrome? I see Donna watching. She knows this one. Hi, Donna. Hi, everybody else. Hi, Megan.
Hello. It's good to see you guys. Yes, clear your cache. It's a good thing to do regularly anyway. And so excited to be here. And I don't know about you guys, but I am excited to talk about assessment. How about you, Elicia?
I'm always excited to talk about assessment.
Especially because we're going to be doing it in fun club, so it's going to be fun. So drop a hello, let us know how you guys are doing. And before we get started, just wanted to go over our norms. So these are our norms for our group, and also, lovely Vanna Cárdenas. Be kind to us and to other viewers or commenters. So we say positive, constructive, I shouldn't say positive things, we say constructive things. So, during this presentation, especially when we're talking about assessments and grading, but pretty much when we're talking about anything, we can sometimes say things that might rub you a little bit the wrong way. And you think, oh, I don't know about that. And your first instinct might be to just type something that's a little bit attacky. And maybe you don't mean it that way, but it might come across that way. And just to create that positive community, the community that we love so much about Somos and we're working hard to maintain as it grows, we always want to be intentional about what we're writing in the group and try to write only constructive things and really do watch the way that our words might come across to other people. Refrain from blame and shame. We are in so many different places. We're in so many different teaching situations right now. We have such ranges of experiences. So just because someone isn't thinking about something the same way that you are doesn't mean that they're thinking about it wrong.
I would add, don't blame yourself for having new information, because we are all on a journey of learning, and that can be really hard.
Together, another word. I don't know.
I'm trying to clap along, but the delay is terrible.
Oh, so sorry. Be willing to try on new ideas. So that's one of the fun things about this group is that you don't have to do anything we tell you. All we ask is that you try it on, kind of like when you get a new shirt, you put it on and think, is this a fit for me? And if not, you can put it back, but at least listen and try on that idea. Ask questions that are related to the topic of the session only. This is going to be really hard tonight because I know that you guys are back in the classroom and you're using Flex and you're using other things and you've heard about the sale tomorrow and you want to ask other questions. I shouldn't have said that because now we're going to get questions about it. Don't ask us questions. We're only going to talk about assessment, and then we can field those other questions in other places, but we really want to stay on topic. It can be super distracting for us. And help each other find answers to the questions. So if anybody posts a question in the comments and you're like, hey, I know the answer to that, you can give the answer to that. Please jump in. It's much easier for you guys actually to answer questions than it is for us while we're talking. So those are our norms. Thanks for being here.
We're very excited you're here. And like, if you know me and if you've been with me in any kind of presentations, you know I love talking about assessment. I get really, really excited about it. So in order to keep myself from getting a little too excited, and also to support you guys who have had a long day of school, and every teacher that I've talked to has said it is so hard.
Yeah.
And you're exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
So let's take a moment and kind of refresh and re-energize and refocus so we know where we're at. This is a square breath. I learned this from Megan Hayes. And what you're going to do is you're going to take your index finger, you're going to inhale and draw up. Inhale. Oh, exhale over. Inhale, draw down. And exhale, draw over. Let's do another square breath. Go at your own pace. Close or soften your eyes. Isn't that nice?
It's nice, except for I had a really hard time with the inhaling when I was drawing down.
You have to focus, and that's all you can focus at. Isn't that a nice thing?
Really need to work on that one. That's great. Megan is so wonderful. Yeah, we've got a blog post that we've shared a bunch of times on Megan's blog with a bunch of different ideas for brain breaths. And they're such an important thing to incorporate, I think, while you guys are doing your digital teaching. So,
and the other thing is that they're important for you too.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay to stop and take a breath and reconnect to yourself, to where you want to go, to what you want to do. Like, you are being asked to do impossible, crazy things, and you actually can't do all the things, and that's okay. And it's okay to take a minute and breathe and figure out where you're going. Okay. You're doing a great job. I promise you, you're doing a great job. I don't even know what you're doing, but you're there and you're showing up, and now you're here, which is really important too. And I have a ton of respect for teachers who choose to grow their practice. And you are those teachers right now. So thank you. Are you ready?
So glad to be here with you. Elicia, I do have to say though, because I know that we're going to get this question.
Okay.
Every time that Elicia is standing in front of her background, we get so many questions about how she did that. So if you guys can really help us, if anybody jumps in at any point and sees Elicia and it's like, how does she have that background? Say Google how to use a virtual background in Zoom. And we do have resources that we can send to you, but that's a question that just always comes up a lot. So
and we want to answer it, but we actually want to talk about assessment. Okay. Yes. So first of all, here's the guiding principle. Yes. Input precedes output. We absolutely have to put in what we want to come out, which means that if we don't put things in, we can't expect, like it's very obvious, but students after week 1 have maybe only had 1 hour of Spanish. That means we're going to get out the equivalent, which is virtually nothing. So let's make sure that as we're looking at our assessment practices, we're putting in and then waiting a really, really long time for it to come out. Okay.
And also thinking about, what are my assessments assessing? Like, what skill or what piece of content are they assessing? And have my students gotten that into them yet at the time that I'm giving them this assessment? So, in week 1, maybe you're like, oh, I want to do a writing assessment, but they really haven't had the input. A reading assessment would make much more sense in that case, although, we don't love assessments in week 1 anyway. But just thinking, what are the skills needed and what needs to be inside their head in order for them to perform this task. So input precedes output.
Which brings us to the question that we get asked a lot, which is, why are there no assessments in Somos, Sumus, or Nous, sommes, Flex, units 1, 2, and 3? And this is why. Truly, we know that this is a bananas year, and we know that students are probably not getting as much awesome input as they have in the past. So we've decided that we need to move and shift our assessments to recognize the reality that we're in. You do you, however. Nothing in Somos is written in stone. If you absolutely need to have an assessment, you make one. And we have lots of stuff in our collaborative drive that can be used as assessments. Like we have lots of resources, but that is one reason why they aren't included. Okay.
And we've got a ton of tools that you can use. We are including assessments in, let's see, I think it starts in unit 2 of level 2 and then unit 4 of level 1. And we're going to show you some of those tonight. So you can very easily create your own assessments model after that if you desperately need them for the early levels. But that reminded me, Elicia, there was someone in the group the other day that was asking for that BVP input processing model graphic. And so basically it's this graphic that I have, and I'm not going to be able to pull it up right now, but that shows what happens in your head when you're acquiring language. And one of the important things, one of the factors that's really important to language acquisition is a low affective filter. And so in order for students to be able to process language that they're hearing, their affective filter has to be low, meaning that they can't be stressed out. Guess what? Zoom and online learning is super stressful. Like you're going in so many directions. And so when Elicia says, you know, your face time with your students is probably already less. And like that, the processability of that input is also less because students' affective filters are that much higher when they're coming into the classroom. So really thinking hard about when does it make sense? When is there enough language in my students' head for us to be able to assess? That's a really important thing to think through for yourself, and then also to be able to talk through with your admins. Yes, Marianela, I'm going to share that graphic later. I already promised and I forgot, and I just remembered. So I'm
sorry, and you know what?
I'm writing it really big.
Ironically, I had it on my background and then I deleted it to get ready for this presentation.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so we know that we have to keep our jobs, right? Like that's assessment is part of our jobs. And we also know some things that many assessment practices raise that affective filter. Many assessment practices don't actually help students build language in their head. So we'd like to offer you some ideas for how to keep your jobs, stay as sane as you can, because we know that's important at all times, but especially this year, and acknowledge the fact that assessments don't help students learn, okay? So we're gonna start with one really big idea, and this can feel super revolutionary, you guys. Let's focus on what students actually can do, okay? And I want you to think about the red pen. And what does the red pen do when we get an assessment from a student and we get out the red pen, or maybe you're crazy and you use pink or purple, and we mark what students can't do. So a big suggestion, a big framework that we have for you is to focus on what students absolutely can do.
And you know what, Elicia, just as you're saying this, you know, I think about that a lot when I'm actually creating assessments in the structure of the assessment, like designing an assessment so that students can show off. But even having that mindset going to a paper, you know, when you're, a paper or a screen or whatever, you know, when you're coming to a student assessment, you aren't looking for what you have to mark off. Like you're not looking for the inconsistencies compared to your answer key or, you know, where they've fallen short. Go into the assessment, even be that like an open-ended question reading assessment, saying like, what were they able to understand out of this? What were they able to do? And I think that mindset shift in our own heads as we're reading through our students' paper, I think that is something that really translates to students and, you know, emanates through our practices.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, it just occurred to me, Martina, we didn't say we do have some resources for you. This is our second fun club about
Oh
assessment.
yeah. Oh
So we
yeah.
have like a whole other, and it's a
Okay.
long one about
Yeah.
assessment. So if you're wondering, like, what do assessments look like in non-COVID and how do you grade it and what goes in the grade book and all of that, we're not going to talk about that here. We're really focusing on like the here, now, and the assessments in Flex, because that's what you guys are dealing with. And we want to give you like the things that you need right now.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that, Elicia. I think probably I should say, because we aren't going to get into all of that. So we have a assessment, the basics of proficiency oriented assessment, standards-based assessment. But what assessments look like even in the original Somos curriculum, and then also in our Somos, Nous, sommes, and Sumus Flex, we are assessing skills. So we're assessing what can students write understandably, what can students understand when they listen, what can students understand when they read. And in levels 1 and 2, we really don't do a lot of speaking assessments, but some teachers choose to. But again, we would be looking at what can, to what degree are they understandable when they speak on specific topics in Spanish. So we're not talking about grammar and vocabulary. You're not going to see those assessments here. We're looking at assessments that mimic what we're doing in class. In class, we're communicating. And so our assessments need to look at to what degree can our students communicate in the target language.
Absolutely. And so I do see a question, but how do you grade what they do? We're actually not going to talk about grading. It's a great question. It is well, actually, so Martina is going to talk about it a little bit. But we do have a ton of resources about grading specifically. And Martina, where did those end up landing? We're going to make a page.
I forgot about them. I totally forgot to do that.
We'll make sure that we post the links. Actually, I'll make sure that I get a link up while you're talking.
Okay. Wow. So, you're really good at multitasking.
I know.
Okay. So, we have links and they're in a place.
And I made this beautiful document for you with all the things. Okay. And specifically, Allison, addressing your question, how to grade. We also did a whole fun club about it on like literally what does that look like? 2 rubrics, short, fast, easy. All right, I'm going to move on because we want to focus on what students can do because nobody grows from negative feedback.
They sure won't die.
I really want to encourage you guys to eliminate should.
Tell us what you mean by that, Elicia.
So what students should be able to do. I taught it, so they should be able to use it. First of all, there's a lot of problems with that statement in terms of language acquisition. That's not how language acquisition works. It's not a teach, practice, use sort of model. It's very, very different. There's internal constraints in our brain that prevent that from happening. There's things that are always going to be late acquired. And unfortunately, most of our textbooks are not designed with those things that we know about language acquisition in mind. So Somos and Nous, sommes, Sumos is very much about eliminating the should and focusing on the can do. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I want you to eliminate for yourself in terms of should is, oh, I should give them a test on every skill, every unit. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, you don't need to, guys. You really, unless you absolutely do need to.
Yeah. And that's a lot of the blame and shame that we're talking about. Like when we say refrain from blame and shame, that's something that you kind of have to let go of, because in all of us through our language classes and all of our classes, there are certain assessment models that are pretty standard. At the end of every unit, you have a comprehensive unit exam, and it usually, takes a full class period, and it's a big part of your grade. And that was, what all of my Spanish assessments were like as I went through as a Spanish language learner. And so then as a Spanish teacher, I, and working out of a textbook, like I had quizzes, multiple quizzes for every unit and a big comprehensive unit exam. And a lot of our time spent in class was taking the assessments, me trying to catch up with students that missed the assessments, dealing with retakes for assessments, setting aside whole class periods at the end of the unit for students to retake assessments that they hadn't had an opportunity to retake, but our principal mandated it. So, I mean, it just turns into this whole big thing when all of that time is lost for language acquisition. So yes, letting yourself go of that, like, what should my class assessment practices look like as a teacher, and trying on new ideas.
And it can be simple.
Mm-hmm.
It really can. Now, we know that everyone's situation is different and every school is different. So let's really focus on doing the bare minimum that you need to do to keep your job, and just do that.
And so, Elicia, can you dig into that a little bit more, though? Because one of the big things, obviously, do the minimum, just focusing on the actual language acquisition, on getting language into students' heads. There's the fact that it's so hard to control cheating in online platforms. So, if students are going to be able to figure out a way to do it anyway, then why waste all of our time coming up with these like crazy locked down assessments? And then one of the biggest things is an equity piece, and I'm hoping that you can maybe jump in and talk about that super briefly. But why is it important to really do like the minimum number of assessments that you have to, as per your job requirements, in terms of equity?
Let me start backwards.
Okay.
First of all, you need to do the minimum because you need your life back. And we all know we're working outrageous amounts and we're like way more exhausted at the end of the day, right? So we really can just take some of our time back and stop giving assessments that are hard to grade, that are mathematically tricky, that
writing assessments takes so long to review.
That takes so long to grade and then put in the grade book and then review. That is not a good use of your time. Shorter assessments are better for you personally, and you personally, my teacher friends, are important in this equation, and don't forget it. Okay, a 1-page assessment versus a 5-page assessment is not going to tell you anything different, and it is going to eat up your time and stress the kids out, right? A 5-question assessment, well written, can get you the same information.
Yeah.
So that's one thing about doing the minimum. Something else, our assessments, if you look at the math about assessments, even if you use standards-based grades, but if you look at an A is like what, a 90 to 100% roughly, and a B and a C, those are passing, failure, maybe D, depending on your situation, and F. So that's 60 to 0. 60 to 0. That's how many percentage points kids have to fail. And then 61 to 100 are how many opportunities they have to win. We know that that's super mathematically weird and inaccurate, and I can go deep into it. I'm not going to. Just trust me on this. It doesn't work. Okay? It doesn't make sense. Number 2, what we are biased and our assessments are biased. We don't mean to be, but we are. So we need to eliminate as much bias as we can from our grading policies and our assessment practices. And I would say many assessment practices and grading policies value certain characteristics and certain traits. When we start grading on what students can do and looking at what they can do performance-wise in our classrooms, we start eliminating some of the bias that we bring. That's why.
And I would say also, if you guys want to dig into this a little bit more, we had an awesome fun club with John Bracey in August, I guess. Was that August or end of July? Anyway, John Bracey fun club episode, look for that. And we talked a lot about the implicit biases in assessment and grading in particular, and how that perpetuates inequality in our society. So, with that said,
let's do the minimum. Take our lives back, and let's only do things that are actually going to help our students by focusing on what they can do. So we know we do have to have some assessments, like we know we do. So
John's here. Hey, John.
Hi. Oh, hi, John. Yeah, that's you. We were talking. Hey, I just assigned you to my graduate kids, my graduate today.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Let's focus on interpretive reading and listening. And the reason I am going to strongly suggest that you focus on interpretive assessments more than output speaking and writing assessments is because when you give an interpretive assessment, you're getting 2-for-1 input. They're reading it the first time and hopefully it's understandable to them. And then you review it a second time, that's more input. So that's 2-for-1. It's using the class time to A, do the minimum and meet your goal, and B, like giving them more input. And we know we have to put in what we want to come out, right?
Right. Hey, Elicia, can we do another brain breath?
Oh yeah, what do you want? Do you want, I've been playing with spider breath. So,
okay, I don't know that one.
So you know how Spider-Man shoots out of here?
Yeah.
It's part of his wrist. So you put your middle fingers down and you point your hands down.
I can't get my fingers to touch.
When you inhale, you go. Inhale.
I pretty much can't do this calmly though, because I want to be like.
I felt that.
Hanging
All right.
out with my kids too much.
So I do see we have some questions.
All right. Yeah, I think definitely some people wanting to know, connect with John. He's in the comments and we'll get you the actual link to that fun club as well. But in general, in life, I would recommend connecting with John. He's just an amazing educator to follow and also the author of the Sumus curriculum. So he is big time part of our family here.
And in terms of, let's see, unfortunately with the new Facebook, you guys, comments fly by so fast and I can't scroll down. I am so sorry. Wish I could. I used to be able to, and this new interface is killing me.
Oh,
so,
hold on. This is totally not related, but a little bit, kind of. So first of all, if you have a comment or a question and we didn't answer it, drop it in the comments again, and so we can answer it. But this is what my husband told me today. So he said his boss is on vacation right now, and his away message responder, like his auto respond, is, I am on vacation. When I get back, I am going to archive all of the emails I received. If you want an answer, email me again after this date. And I thought, good for him. Because, you know, like for any of you guys, like when you try to tackle a vacation, you come back and there's a bazillion emails. And especially now with all the students and stuff, like put on you have permission to do this. Put on an autoresponder and say, if you want it bad enough,
email me again.
Email me again.
Because you know what my morning was like. I tell you what.
I know. Elicia just got back today and I'm like I'm on a weird vacation. So yeah. Anyway.
All right. So we focused on the interpretive. We're doing the minimum, which is why there's not a lot of assessments included. We're eliminating should, both what the kids should do and what you should do. We're focusing on what students can do. Okay? Because friends,
he's so cute. That pig is so cute.
He's so cute. Let's just have him. Oh, guys, I learned this is a pig in ASL. Pig. Yeah. Give me your best pig oink right now. Make your kids laugh. Oink, oink,
Reminds me of Sunlight Pig. I hope you guys, have you seen in Somos 2 Unit 1? It's a totally new story. It's the Sunlight Pig commercial. I think it's so cute.
It's really awesome. And that's why I learned this word.
Oh,
right?
That's awesome. Okay. Well, that makes
but you guys, weighing the pig more often doesn't make it fatter. Only feeding it makes it fatter. Okay? And fat pigs are very desirable. Fat, healthy pigs win blue ribbons. If we are constantly putting the pig on the scale and seeing how fat it is, but not letting it eat, it's never going to gain weight. If we are constantly assessing our kids and not giving them the rich language diet that we know that they need, they will never be able to acquire. And you guys, the other thing is, it doesn't matter truly if we get this like evaluative information, like, oh, I can see that none of my kids can use the passé composé yet. Well, you know what? There's only one solution.
Always more input, always more. I've got to come up with like a good cheer for that.
Like, truly, if you see that students are not using a certain structure that you have taught them, it's not necessarily about you.
Yeah.
It could be that they haven't had enough input on it. It could be that the web in their brain has not developed enough for them to be able to output it yet. It could be that they are in a developmental stage that neither you nor they can control.
Yes. This, honestly, like this comes up all the time in the Somos, in our different Facebook groups. We see it all the time. It's like, my students are having a hard time with X. My students haven't quite gotten the hang of X. So like sitter and star, they can't get their verb endings, or they can't do this. And the answer is always, always, always the same. Sure, there's little tricks that you can do to like teach them something explicitly, but explicit instruction does not put language in students' heads. If you want the language to be in their heads, for them to be able to produce language accurately, then the only thing that you need to do is focus on input. I should say communicative input, because there's input in everything. Like, you can say a list of words and that's input. The answer is always more communicative input that is processable, that they can make sense of, so that it can get added to that developing mental representation of language in their heads.
Ha! You thought we were talking about assessment. We kicked you, because you know what's really important? Communicatively embedded input. All right.
We have big time here. Someone was asking about that. You can't buy Annie, I'm so sorry. Garbanzo gear is not for sale. Garbanzo gear, you have to come upon it, which was a lot easier when there were conferences. Actually, I'm wearing, this is not a Garbanzo shirt. I'm so off. This is what happens when we do this at 8 o'clock at night. This is not a Garbanzo shirt, but this is the shirt by the company that built Garbanzo, and they're also co-owners with me. And their motto is "Be nice, do good." Isn't that the best? And every year they make a shirt. So we're both wearing Garbanzo shirts, just in different ways.
They're really, really nice people.
Yes, they're amazing.
Okay, I think it's your turn. Yay!
Oh yeah, and actually, Elicia, because of the way I've got it set up, it works. Do you mind to just keep it as your virtual background? Okay. So really quickly, I know that for those of you that are totally new to standards-based assessment, you're probably feeling like you missed something, like there's a few holes in what we just went through, and that's because there is. So we didn't go through our big, long assessment spiel about how we grade and why we grade for communicative tasks and not for grammar and vocabulary, but that's because we already have a whole fun club episode about it, and we can share that with you, that link with you, and you can watch it on YouTube, you can watch it in the group, you can watch it on the blog, you can watch it everywhere. So with those kind of big mindsets in place, the idea that you're doing the minimum, focusing on input, focusing on what students can do, what do assessments actually look like in our Flex materials? So how have we adapted what already existed in the curriculum that was meant to be taught face-to-face with students for hybrid and digital models? And the two big questions that I was asking as I was talking with Elicia through all of this, and really Elicia came up with all of the assessment models, and she relied heavily on the ideas shared by Bill Langley, Anne-Marie Chase, who else? There were a few, Diane Neubauer probably. Two big questions. What do we want to know? So when you're thinking about assessment, what is it? What kind of data am I looking for? What do I want to know about my students? And what might prevent me from getting good data? And for the digital space, that's really the big question. Because in a classroom, like, I want to know in an interpretive reading assessment, to what degree can my students understand this text that I'm going to put in front of them? What do assessments actually look like? But you know, when we're doing that in a digital space, it becomes a little bit more complicated because it's like, well, how do I know that they're not just putting it into Google Translate? Or how do I know that they're not, you know, pulling up their notes or their stories? And, you know, maybe that matters, maybe it doesn't. But, you know, what are the different things that might prevent me from getting good, clear, accurate data about their assessments? Next slide.
Sorry,
And
I was answering a question.
Oh, sorry, thank you. If you want to know how Elicia has the background behind her, we'll send you resources, but mostly just please Google how to get a virtual background on Zoom. So what we came up with, I wanted to just show you these. These are all in the Flex units, and they start in unit 4 of level 1 and unit 2 of level 2. Those are the first times that you'll see assessments in the Flex units. And for an interpretive listening assessment, and this will be the same thing with reading, but instead of you reading aloud something to your students, they will be reading something to themselves. So what you're going to do in class is you're going to have a script that you read aloud to your students live synchronously. So you have your class meeting and it's a very short assessment. You're just reading them a little story. And while you are reading them this story, they have a response resource in front of them. So it might be that you have sent them the link to a Google form. And while you are reading aloud this script, they are responding to the answers in the form. So it's happening in live time. Or if Google Forms are complicated, it might be that they have a digital worksheet in front of them where they're responding like in PowerPoint or in slides, and they're responding to questions on the slide while you're reading aloud the script. And for the forms, we did lock it with a password. So on every listening assessment script, you're going to see a password that students need to enter to unlock it. But honestly, I don't even think that that's necessary. I mean, at the end of the day, one of these mindsets that we talk about is that if a student really wants to cheat, they're going to find a way. So the best thing that you can do is make it easy. So you focus on what students can do. You're not trying to test students again on what they can't do. It shouldn't feel hard. It should feel easy to them. You're giving them an assessment when you to prove that they can do what you think they can do. And so you're reading a simple story. And then if you do that, there's the incentive for them to cheat. It's going to be more work for them to cheat than to just do the assessment along with you. So focus on those things. So you'll see the script, you'll see the password. I'll show you where to enter it. Elicia, you can go to the next slide and also interrupt me whenever.
Oh, actually, there is something I want to say about what you just said.
Okay.
And that's, we talk about what students can do, and we want to prove to them that they can do it. If you've been in a teacher lab with me, you know I talk about no failure. This is one way. I personally don't give an assessment if I don't think that 90% of my kids can get about an 85% or above on it. And I also am pretty much never surprised by their results because I'm doing constant formative assessments. I'm checking in to see what they can do all the time. I'm not trying to get them. I'm trying to make them feel like they can. Mm-hmm. And that's so important.
Mm-hmm. Yes, totally 100% agree. So these are, this is not the forms. This is what the response forms look like if you're using slides or PowerPoint. So I've provided in Flex, we're providing all of the response forms in 2 formats, in Google Forms and as slides. If it's these slides, you can also print out and distribute to your students. Now, this idea came from Anne-Marie Chase. Again, if you really feel like you want to have a lot of protections and like really minimize the opportunity for cheating, and or your administration is like, how are we going to protect academic integrity? Like, tell me all the ways. If there's a great concern about that, then use all 3 of these versions. But basically what you do is you segment your class into 3 different groups of students, the same class, and you send 10 of your kids the pink version, 10 of your kids the yellow version, and 10 of your kids the blue version. So then when you're in class live and you're reading this assessment aloud and they're answering to their questions, if they want to be if they really want to be texting their friends and sharing answers, you've added an additional layer of difficulty around that because they might not have the same version. Of course, they could say like, who has the pink version? And they could talk, but again, if you've made the assessment easy, like that is so much work for them to do all of that figuring out. And if it's easy for them to just listen and answer these simple questions, that's enough. They're just going to do the assessment. Oh, Joanne, you're welcome. And Joanne, I also, Joanne just said, we're a Microsoft school. Thank you so much for the inclusion of PowerPoints. I am talking with Eileen Betanes about how to get forms. Like she's been creating forms for Microsoft. We just have to figure out the sharing, and I keep losing track of that conversation, and I intend to, because I know that I really want to make sure that the Microsoft Teams teachers have the same level of options with the curriculum as teachers that aren't using Microsoft Teams. So we are working on that. And Eileen, if you're watching, I will email you back again. I'm so sorry. I keep abandoning that conversation. So again, these forms, if you're doing it in slides, students can actually click on the true or the false rectangles, and they use the fill tool to fill it in with a color that's true or false for each statement. If you print it out, they can just color it in. So it's super, super, super simple. Profe Bennett, you asked, how do you share them? Multiple links on Google Classroom. Honestly, Elicia, can you answer that? So how would you segment out your class?
So what I would do is I use Canvas, and I would create, I'd probably play it with a couple different things. I would probably either message my kids like, okay, if I've called your name, here's your link. I want to see you log in. Or in Canvas, I might create 3 different assignments, because you can assign them at a very like granular level to different kids. Or I might just say this, like, pick one and tell me what color it is. Like, I would do it that simple. There's so many different ways that you can do it. It's really hard to say. And I don't know. Yeah. Actually, I do know. I wouldn't assign all 3. I would not take the time to do that. That is bananas. And to go back to this idea of equity, like if we're creating a culture about points and where cheating is so pervasive because they want the points and you got to win at school, like that's not how my class runs. And I've never really had a problem with it. So for me, it's really like, you don't have to cheat because this is way too easy.
That's, you know, it's a total mindset shift in our heads, and also for our students. Like as teachers, I mean, maybe it's a teacher thing. Like I love catching kids doing the wrong thing. I love busting kids. That's terrible. I shouldn't have said that out loud, but it's true a little bit. And so like the idea of like creating all of these different assessments, like if a kid's going to be trying to cheat, then I want to catch him cheating. And so for me as a teacher, like I also had the idea that like my kids want to cheat on assessments. Like this was a thinking that I had. Like I'm like, my kids, like they're gonna try to find a way. That's like their goal for the assessment. Is like, and that's not true. I mean, maybe some kids for really hard assessments, maybe yes, but when your assessment is really easy, kids aren't trying to cheat.
So I'm watching the comments right now, and I need to interrupt. Friends.
Yeah.
Check it out. You're thinking of like, oh my gosh, you can pre-assign and you can make these groups and you can assign it and you put it into the Canvas new quizzes, which are a nightmare, by the way, and like all of this other stuff. And you know what? Don't do any of that. How about just send them one form and tell them that everybody has a different color? Like that's something you could do too. Yes. Or don't.
Those are white lies. Annabelle's the queen of white lies. I love that. Like, yes, send everybody the same form and tell them everyone has a different color, or there's 3 different colored forms. They'll never figure it out and it's fine. Alicia, thank you for stopping that, because I think that is so important. Like we've given you all these tools, and again, you might have to be defending your academic integrity practices, whatever, to your school, but you probably don't. You probably can just send one assessment and your kids are going to do great on it. And it's going to show that they have all that language in their head that you know is there anyway.
And like a good rule of thumb for you might be, this is a 5-question quiz. If it takes you more than 5 minutes to assign it, and more than 10 minutes to grade, well, like, I don't know, 30 seconds a kid to grade it, you're overthinking it. Like, it shouldn't be brain surgery, truly. Like, we don't have to do all of those things.
And I should say, yeah. And again, a few things. First of all, when it comes, I love that you guys are jumping in and helping each other. If you do really want to figure this out, you feel like you really need to figure out all the different ways to assign stuff, connect with other teachers that are using your same learning management system. Even better, connect with tech support from the learning management system, because every school pays for different levels of features. And so what works in your school might not work at another teacher's school. Another neat trick, though, that speaking of saving time, that I learned, Anne-Marie Chase, if you're not reading her blog, you need to be reading her blog. She has so many. She's like the queen of time saving smart tips. You can adjust when you get all your slides assignments back from your students. You can adjust the view so you're seeing the thumbnail of each image. And with these ones, the responses are big enough, like the true or false buttons are big enough that in that thumbnail view, you can actually see students' responses. Like, you can see which ones they've picked. So just at a glance, you don't even need to take the time to open all of their documents. Even better, though, obviously, using the forms, which, Elicia, can you jump to the next slide?
Yep.
We also are providing a forms version of all of these interpretive assessments. And that, obviously, you can set it so that Google just grades it for you. And that's actually, I think it's already set up like that, the way that I created the settings. And so there is a slide where it says, what is the password? And I thought this was so funny. It says, what is the password? Actually, teacher. And then look at the bottom. Google has like this little warning. It says, never submit passwords through Google.
Right.
I was like, shoot, I need to find a different word for password, because I know some students going to get stressed out about that. But again, that password is on the assessment. For this one, it was pencil. It's on the listening assessment script. So you give your students the password, then they can see the form. Your students aren't going to be trying to cheat if it's easy. So don't stress about that, but it's one of those measures that you can, I don't know, say, hey, I did this, and so it's locked down. And then students just type in their answers as they're listening to you. And you can send out different forms. You can send out the pink form to some students, the blue form to some students, the yellow form to other students. Again, Anne-Marie Chase has the little trick that she blogged about where it pulls all of the answers from different forms into one place, so you could have it graded in one place. But if you just send out the same form to everybody, then you don't even need to worry about figuring out that trick.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's the forms. And then writing assessments, I think it's the next one.
I did not get that slide.
I didn't. Okay, that's okay. I can do. So I'm going to our fancy virtual background trick, which you can Google how to do virtual backgrounds. I am going to, oh gosh, now let's see if I can find this, because I should just tell you guys about it.
While you're
I cleared all my browsing history. It's going to take me so long to find it. I'm not going to bother. We do have writing assessments also. Okay.
We do have, do you want to talk about them? Is it a Google form? Is it?
So the writing assessments, I provided them again in two ways. I provided them as a Google form, if that's how you want to do it. I provided it as a printable paper, and then I also provided it as a Word doc. But focusing on what students can do, if you open up the presentational writing assessment, gosh, I really should find it. Do you want to answer questions, and I'll try to find them?
Yeah. So I see one question, like, what do you do when you're the people in your department are nitpicky and really are trying to capture, or like trying to capture, get kids for not knowing? Gotcha. And I think that's a really difficult situation and really painfully common. So what I want you to think about, there's a couple ways to phrase it. And one of them is, there's this wonderful teacher here in Utah who was in that department. And she really, she decided to focus on building bridges and building relationships and finding the commonalities, because nobody doesn't want their students to acquire language, right? Like, that's something you and the other teacher have in common. Now, the other teacher might not see that everyone is capable of learning a language, as we believe over here in the comprehensible classroom. However, they very well might. And so start with what you agree on. Then start having conversations about, well, what if instead of them being able to use, like, pick which version of which verb goes in the sentences, why don't we have them write sentences and show their knowledge based on the actual performance descriptors? Because when you really dig into those actual performance descriptors, they are your friends. Novice low, novice mid, novice high, intermediate low, intermediate mid, intermediate high, all need sympathetic readers and listeners. There is no expectation of accuracy. So I would say build bridges and go back to the standards. Go back to the proficiency guidelines.
Yeah, I think that's so important, because a lot of times we'll have in our heads that, like, oh, ACTFL, like it's, you know, this super scary official organization and the ACTFL standards. But when you start looking at the ACTFL standards, when you've been in a communicative classroom focused on comprehension, they're so easy. Like, students can, I should say not so easy. The first levels are so easy. I mean, once they hit intermediate, like progress comes a lot slower, but those novice range tasks are so easy for students to accomplish at the beginning. So actually that makes me think I should have had, I should have had a different clip, but that's okay. I'm going to share what I have and it's going to be just fine. So
meanwhile, while you're doing that, another question. Oops. Everything just went weird on my screen.
Oh, because I shared.
Because you started sharing, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. We'll have to come back to it. Okay. Okay, so really quick, I'll do this super fast. So presentational writing assessments, coming back to what do we want to know and what might prevent us from getting good data from our students. So what are we trying to figure out? And again, we have not included any presentational speaking assessments yet in Somos. In the Flex units, you could do them the same way, just have students, like you could design the same tasks, just have students speak their answers instead of write them. And then what might prevent us from getting good data? So again, like what are the things that students might be doing that's going to skew your data, that's going to be giving you a different picture than what they're actually able to do with their language? So really simple, the grading for this, you can see I outlined in Flex, this is how I grade. I set each, I say if students can perform the novice low task, that's a 65 because it's so easy. By the time I've given them this assessment, they have a lot of language in their head by unit 5. Emerging, oh, that's still at novice low. Proficient, novice mid, that's an 85. You can read through all of this.
And I want to point something out. Actually, can you go back?
Oh, yeah.
Because it's not that student can perform the task accurately or without errors or there's like no descriptors about that. It's can they do it in the target language. It's not how well can they do it, how accurately can they do it. And that's really important because I think we miss that a lot when looking at these descriptors.
And so going back and looking at ACTFL's novice low guidelines, I should have them memorized by now, but you know, it doesn't say that they can translate a sentence perfectly accurately. It's like you were saying, Elicia, to a sympathetic reader, you know, they're going to have many errors. They're going to have some errors, like all of those ACTFL performance descriptors talk about errors. Like that is part of the expectation. Your students are not going to be performing the task 100% accurately, but they're going to be completing it. And so that's what you're looking for, is can I do it? So for our writing assessments, I was just trying to think, I don't want to give students just the novice high task. I don't want to tell them to do something that might be too hard for them, that they might not be ready for yet. And so then I don't have any data about what they can do. All I can see is what they haven't been able to. So I'm going to start at the beginning and have them do the most simple task, which is translate simple, familiar sentence from English to Spanish. That's a novice low task with the vocabulary in front of them. Okay, these are all novice low is like transcription in ACTFL standards. So it's very easy. So can students—
So wait, say that again. That's really important.
Novice low is transcription. Like a novice low writing task is filling out a form, is transcribing words. I mean, they're very, very simple things. So when you're seeing if your students can perform a novice low task and they're 6 weeks into the school year, can my students translate the sentence, Carlos has a sister, when they've got the vocabulary in front of them? They probably can do that. Novice mid, I can rewrite a story or information from memory, like something really simple. Can they retell, can they recall something, is novice mid. So again, a very easy task. And in Flex, there's so much repetition, just like in the regular curriculum, that's very easy for students to do. And then novice high, this is your A. Like if a student can use the core vocabulary, which you give to them during the assessment. So down here, I don't tell them what it means, but I give them the vocabulary. Can they create something new, just a slight spin? So create a new version of something, or write something totally original. So really, really, really easy tasks.
And so I see some questions.
Yeah.
And we aren't going to spend too much time because it's super late for Martina and kind of late for me.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, East Coast friends, West Coast friends, you're rocking it. Okay, one question is, how do I know if they are on the right level? Well, like based on what they write, how do I assess which level they are? Well, you can, and again, our assessment Hacks and Hopes also deals with this deeply, but truly, if they can do that one thing, that's a novice low. If they can do that one thing and the next, then they're novice mid. Mm-hmm. It really isn't brain surgery. And if you're, the concern is that some of your students would get a 65 and die. And so I've been teaching at a very high socioeconomic, very academically focused school. And I totally hear what you're saying, deeply. So would mine. I taught honors classes also. And they pretty much never did, for one thing, because I only give them the assessment when I think they can be successful. So that's the first thing, is I know when it's time, and I know that they're going to be successful because I'm the expert in the room, right? Like, and sometimes I got it wrong and I owned it and I threw out the test, and that's okay. The other thing is that if that's the mindset, I would start working on a proficiency mindset. And in the links that we're going to send out, I promise, we really, we talk about some ways to sort of start teaching in a proficiency mindset, because when we get kids moving away from grade grabbing and points fiddling, we are creating more opportunities for everybody, and we're creating the mindset that we want.
Yes.
Right?
There were 2 questions. So Katrina, yes, I'm going to try to pull this up. To be clear, do you give each kid novice low, novice mid, etc.? Yes. So I give it to them in sequence. So it's kind of like leveling up. What I did, actually, I based this on something that I used to do in my classroom. And I would tell my kids, like, hey, pick the level that you want to shoot for. And so in the classroom, I would say, here's 3 different tasks. You choose, like, if you can do this one, then you're going to get a B on this assessment. If you can do this one, you're going to get an A. That's a little bit harder to do in virtual. So I just have them work through the sequence. But honestly, like, the only kids that got D's in my class, so that 65 level, were the kids that were never there. That was the only way that you could get a D in my class. If you were in my class, at least most of the time, you could at least be a C, and my class was almost entirely A's and B's, because I was assessing, like Elicia has said 100 times, I was assessing my students. I would give them the assessment when I knew that they would be able to be successful on it. And that can really rub people the wrong way when they hear that. That's one of those new ideas that, we really encourage folks to try on, because it's like, well, that's too easy. It's like, well, why does it have to be hard? Well, like, why do we think that an assessment is supposed to be challenging? Like, an assessment is supposed to be, again, Anne-Marie Chase, we definitely should have invited her. I've talked about her so much. Like, your celebration of learning, this is your opportunity to show what you can do. So why am I going to say, like, hey, like, I want you to show me what you can do, and then, like, crush all your hopes and dreams by making it so hard?
So I just popped into the bit.ly, into the comments, the bit.ly link.
Mhm.
There was a question, does Comprehensible Classroom have an activity of some sort to help teach students what proficiency is? I wrote a whole blog post on it over on my blog, Deskless Classroom. Yes, it's linked on that bit.ly link. Our assessment hacks and hopes, our writing, all of the things are on there, and that is updated. It's from the most recent assessment workshop that I did. So would I have these same standards in a normal era? Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yes, yes, and yes. Yes. The only thing that we've been trying to adapt is, again, like what obstacles are in the way that might keep me from getting clear data from my students. So absolutely, I mean, the standards are the standards, like ACTFL's performance, it's because we've decided to give assessments that are giving evidence for position on ACTFL's performance descriptors. Wow, that was really difficult for me to say. Those performance descriptors don't change. So whether we're in the classroom in pre-COVID normal life or post-COVID life, or we're in a hybrid model or we're digital, it's the same.
Mm-hmm. The only difference really is that we recognize that students aren't probably in taking as much language. So we've delayed the assessments.
Yes.
And I wrote for the job that I just left, I suggested that we actually change what proficient looks like based on this.
Sorry, I just made it go crazy for you again, probably because I shared my screen.
It's all right.
I just wanted to show really quick. This is what the actual writing assessment looks like there's a forms version of it as well, but this is what it looks like in the doc. So again, students, they see this is written out. So novice low, you are, your writing is almost entirely incomprehensible. You're confused, probably frustrated. You need some help. Okay. It's really hard to, actually, I think I need to change this. This is what I need to be. You use this, I need to change this rubric in the assessment I'm seeing, because this does not match the assessment that I've given. Novice low,
it's the old one.
I know, you use a small number of repetitive words and phrases. You use some simple words to provide basic information. Your writing is understood with great effort. So this is novice low in ACTFL. This is what a novice low is. These other ones, ignore those. I've got to fix that. You use a small number of repetitive words and phrases. You use some simple words to provide basic information. Your writing is understood only with great effort. Okay, if you have students whose writing can be understood with great effort, but just barely, guess what? They're novice low. That's awesome. They're already performing. So students go to this and they just go through all of the tasks. So they translate their simple sentences in these boxes. Oh, this was one of the things. Anytime you want to have translation or stuff in a writing assessment, insert it as a JPEG, because then students can't just copy and paste it. I mean, they're probably not going to go through the trouble anyway, but it's one of those layers of protection. In Flex, we've just done it for you. So that's one of the ways that we're helping you. But they just do the translations, and then they get to the novice mid task. They retell a small part of a story, and then the novice high, they can try to create something on their own. So those are all layered in there.
So I am going to, Mariola, if the link isn't working, I'm not sure why, because I see like 10 people already added onto it. Sorry. So I'm not sure. I would try clearing your cache and seeing if the link works. If that's what you were saying. We have one question, and I think maybe that's all we have time for.
Yes.
But it's a really big one, and it's from amazing teacher and coach Carol Hill, who's an incredible coach and incredible practitioner. What if the department final doesn't look like my assessments? That's a really good question. And I think there's a couple answers. One of them is get yourself on that assessment writing team.
Yes.
Yeah, it's more work. But again, go back to that. What do we actually want our students to be able to do? And what do our proficiency guidelines say? In that bit.ly link, Martina wrote this really beautiful, I use it all the time. It's a very easy to read blog post about designing assessments for student success. And I would start with sharing that with your department of just like, here's some best practices for designing assessments. Let's see how we do. Because that's an interesting conversation.
Mm-hmm. And then, at the end of the day, Carol, sometimes you just have to be able to keep your job. And for example, if you know that students are going to have like a midterm or final where completely out of context, they're given a list of vocabulary words that they have to translate one for one, or there's, grammar where they just have to conjugate verbs. You probably do want to prepare your students for that in letting them know this is what you're going to see. All this stuff. It's just stored in your head in an actual useful way. So you might find really hard. I share this story about my brother was so smart, and he took this vocabulary quiz on Facebook, and I took the same one. And he got to one question. He said this word that I don't remember what it was, but it was so easy. Like, I knew what this vocabulary word was. And it was like, oh, well, if they used it in a sentence, I would know what it means. And it's like, exactly, because in real life, you never just have someone that's saying like, tell me this word, test. You always have the support of context to help you. And so it's not fair to your students that then all of a sudden on a midterm assessment, they're being told, tell me this word in the target language. Like, that's not real life. That just shows that the language that they've been, the way that they've been asked to learn language is not going to be useful to them in real life. But the fact of the matter is, you don't want your students to get to that assessment and feel like they stink at your language after when they're doing so amazing. So you might need to do some little preps for them leading up to that. But then the big thing is, start having those conversations with your department and sharing with them resources to help shift their thinking, and coming from contribution. So not trying to blame or shame them for having the same thoughts that all of us have had in the past. Just coming alongside them and sharing your excitement, but not too much excitement, because that can be a turn off too in the journey. Okay, so really quick announcements. I'm going to wrap it. So a few things I shared in the group. Just Google. You can probably Google survey. We are planning Elicia's next round of teacher labs, which they were so impactful for the teachers that took part of these first two rounds. Our next teacher labs, we're going to do some one-off topics. So Elicia, you're going to be talking about...
We're going to be talking about just a one session using the online environment, using Zoom, 90 minutes, like different things we can do with tech that maybe we couldn't do, and reframing it. Another session is actually opening up Flex and like demo teaching and looking at some of the considerations for actually teaching Flex in different environments. And the third one is on Pear Deck. And so how do I act, like how I use Pear Deck. And that one comes with a lot of freebies that you can use and manipulate. And then the last session is on differentiation, because I really think we need to up our differentiation game, friends, and we can. And I'm really excited about that one.
I am too. So those sessions will it'll be I guess October that will be running those. October we'll be running those sessions, so you can look at this. But anyway, we're trying to schedule them, and we want to make sure we schedule them at times that you'll be able to attend. So please look for the survey in the group. Take the survey. If you take it tonight, we're going to be giving away some TPT gift cards tomorrow. We'll be doing like a raffle for everybody that's submitted the survey results. So take that, look for that post tonight, submit that survey. It'll just take you a couple minutes so that we know when to schedule these trainings. There is a Teachers Pay Teachers sale tomorrow. I'm so like sailed out from August that I haven't really been talking about it. They've never done a site-wide sale in September before, but this year is not like any other. So if you find yourself thinking like, oh my gosh, during the August sale, I bought this one thing and I really wish I had more of that. Or now that I'm actually in the classroom, I realize like, here's this whole set of things that this is what I really need. Tomorrow is the day. It's a one-day sale, up to 25% off. So it's 20% off everything in our store, all of our curriculum, all the digital curriculum, El Mundo en tus manos, Latin curriculum, French curriculum, everything. And then use the coupon code extra bonus at checkout to get the additional 5% off. And that's site-wide. So I've got a bunch of things I'm going to be getting from other people too. And then what was my third announcement?
Was it about the assessments lab that's coming in November?
Oh, it wasn't, but yeah, it should have been. So if you guys like are totally obsessed with it, you know, I shouldn't say obsessed. If you're intrigued by this assessment idea, if you really want to dig into this more, Elicia, we're going to be doing an assessment. Elicia will be doing an assessment teacher labs, and that'll be
4 sessions. We're going to go
sessions.
really, really deep into theory and practice. It's based on what I do with my graduate students, and only better. I think it's going to be better. And I'm really, really excited about it. That's something I've wanted to do for a long time. So it's going to be a masterclass in assessment.
Woohoo! So we'll be sending out more information about that once we know what times of the day to schedule it, because you guys are going to fill out the survey and tell us when you need those things. So we hope that you guys have a super amazing, restful night. Close your computer. Everything that you think that you have to do for school right now. I mean, it would probably be irresponsible for me to just say that you don't have to do it, but you probably can close your computer and just give yourself an evening. Oh, look at those flowers. That's wonderful. I've been practicing rest a lot lately because it is just so important. And I know that what you're doing right now is so, so, so hard. And we love you. We love being connected with you. So have a great night, and we will see you next time.
Take care. Ciao,
Bye,
pescado
guys.
bacalao.